Good afternoon, partners. I'm here, Serge Blondin from IT Cloud with Paul from Bitdefender. We are getting ready to present the Acronis EDR and Bolo presentation, but we're going to wait a few minutes just to give more time for people to connect and be with us. While we wait, we might chat about not important things, but
no, it's not that it's not important. I actually wanted to ask you, Serge, because I don't know, and I don't know if the audience knows. This is being recorded, right? So for
yes.
People who want to go back and look at it later, they'll be able to. And for people who weren't able to join, we can still send a link to people who registered but didn't actually get a chance to join, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So people will still see what we're saying, even if they're not here. Hopefully they do join. Do we have a live questions and answers section 2 that we'll be taking questions from?
We will. I will take a look at the chat while we are online. If there's a question and I am able to answer, I will answer directly in the chat. But if you want, I can bring them up to you and we can discuss them.
Yeah. That's a good idea because when I flow, I flow. So
you don't have the time to look at it. I get that.
I wouldn't mind at all if you were able to say, hey, Paul, we do have a question, and then I'll try to answer it.
Perfect. Let's do that. So let's just start then. And first, I have a few slides to show you guys. It's like I said, it's the webinar for IT Cloud and Bitdefender. Like I said, myself, Serge Blondin from IT Cloud, and Paul Lupo from Bitdefender. Paul, I know, and I think I'm right that it's not your first time doing presentation for us at IT Cloud, so people might already know you. And
it's a good chance, yeah.
If you got the chance to speak with Paul, it's a very good discussion because he knows his stuff and he's really good at presenting these security.
Appreciate that, Serge.
You're welcome. I would like to remind everybody to vote for our two member of IT Cloud being in the challenge for Reseller Choice Awards. Elle Aaron for the best woman in tech and Laura Prefontaine for the best channel chief. And I think they both deserve it. They are doing a fantastic job with us.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So I will stop sharing my screen and I will let you share yours and go from there.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I have your screen right now, so everybody should have it.
All right, perfect. So what we're going to talk about today is, you're already a Bitdefender customer. You have core, maybe a few of our add-ons, but you don't have our security suite all the way up to the managed detection response. So we're going to talk about what you currently have, just as a refresher, and then talk about where you go from there. So as part of that refresher, there may be things in there that you have, but you weren't aware that you have these as part of your license already. So you don't have to license these things, you just turn them on. And so when we talk about our client security for MSPs, we talk about reducing the amount of technology that you need to purchase, right? So multiple vendors consolidated into one vendor for things like not just your anti-malware protection, but also device control or content filtering, as well as the ransomware mitigation, right? So those things are part of our core product. And as long as you're using Bitdefender in any capacity, they're already available to you to use. Meaning, if I'm worried about being able to roll back files in a ransomware attack, you don't have to buy another solution to do that. You also don't have to do another solution to lock down things like USBs, right? So we have that ability to control what people are plugging into your network, right? So again, that's all part of the core product. If you're licensing the technology, you can use it. It's just a flick of a toggle switch for it to be turned on, right? So when you're looking at that, what you have is a very basic protection system. So in the case of your car, you have an airbag, attentioning seatbelts, and crumple zones that are going to protect you in the event of an accident, right? They're not really there to prevent things from happening, but they are there to prevent you from getting hurt if something were to happen. And that's how I like to position when you're using core, right? Very, very protective layers. When we start talking about where do you go from there, we do have some critical add-ons, and we're just going to highlight them here. I'm going to get into what they are after we get through this particular slide. And then if there are questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We have Serge who'll interrupt me and ask me the question, and I will answer them for you. So advanced threat security is the first piece of what we call critical add-ons, and it adds some things to our stack that are looking for more unknown things, right? So when things are more suspicious but not identified immediately as a malicious threat, we have that layer there to help with that. And the endpoint detection and response gives you triageability, right? So when we start to see things happening inside of Bitdefender's dashboard, and we can say that's a security event or an incident, we're able to take action on that based on what's in that dashboard. And again, I'm going to show you all this in depth more. We're just going through the slides right now. So the extended detection response, this is layered on top of EDR. So as long as you are at the EDR level, you also have the ability to do some things integrated into other solutions, other platforms, right? So that's what the X is in XDR. It allows us to go beyond the endpoint and get some things at the source. So if you don't have an MDR in front of any of your DRs, that is stuff that you do yourself for your customers. When you layer in the managed detection and response, what we're doing now is we're saying Bitdefender's team is going to take on that security responsibility for you. You have a lot of things that you do for your customers. Security is only one of them. If you're not able to keep up with the demand of security and you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff in there, I don't have the time to be in this dashboard all day. Great. That's why we have a SOC. So our team would do that 24/7 by 365 for you. There are other add-ons, right, to complete the hardening of the endpoints and make sure that you have all your checkboxes for compliance filled out. All right, those optional add-ons are there. So if you need to email security, we do have a solution that you would redirect your MX record to come in through our service and clean it before it landed in its destination. If you have mobile devices that you need to protect, we have security for mobile too, right? So there are critical add-ons and there are optional add-ons based on what the needs of you and your customers are. So let's first take a look at advanced threat security. So advanced threat security is looking at things that are suspicious. They're not identified immediately as malicious, but things like fileless attack defense. Without fileless attack defense, you have to wait for something bad to happen and then take action on it. When we include the advanced threat security, the ATS, we can actually see those things running in the background, right? So it doesn't have anything on the endpoint. There's nothing in the registry or on disk that is saying, hey, I'm a threat, come take care of me. But you click on an email, there's things going on in memory that we know are malicious in behavior. So we don't actually have to wait for the payload, right? Trying to get credentials or calling out to a command and control server and pulling something bad down. We can stop it earlier in that attack kill chain because as soon as you clicked on that email, we recognized that behavior was suspicious. So we didn't let it go any further. On top of that, the HyperDetect is tunable machine learning. So we don't know exactly what all of your environments look like, but we have a really good idea of what's suspicious and what's real. So with our tunable machine learning, we let you fine tune our machine learning to the environments that you're putting them in, right? So now we get to baseline, whitelist and blacklist based on what we're showing you we see that looks suspicious, so that from that point forward, we know that that's normal behavior. Just show me the anomalies now because I've already baselined everything that I was expecting. There's also a cloud sandbox analyzer. This is a complete forensic analysis of what something was. In this case, it's ransomware. So we're going to rip out the ransomware node so you can see who that actor is. One of the things that Bitdefender has been doing for years, and we just recently released our 33rd, we released decryptors. When we figure out how to decrypt something, we don't charge you for the decryptor. They're on our website in the tools section. You can download that to decrypt those files. In the event that a machine not running Bitdefender got on the network and started to spread through the environment, you'll be able to go get that decryptor and put it on the unprotected machine by Bitdefender, decrypt those things, then install Bitdefender on it, right? So we're also going to show you everything that something could have done as part of that sandbox analyzer. So it's not just when we see ransomware happening, but anything that was looking suspicious, we can automatically send you back a forensic analysis on, right? So that is advanced threat security. What that does, it's a precursor to endpoint detection and response. That means on top of the core that you already have, you would layer in the advanced threat security. Those pieces would start to look at things and identify things that were threats, and then they would put them in the incidents dashboard. And that's where the EDR comes in, endpoint detection and response. It allows us to look at entry points. How did this particular threat get in my environment? What did it touch along the way? And how many alerts did it generate, right? So now I can start to get a picture of, okay, I didn't, maybe that was the first machine that had Bitdefender on it, but there was another machine before that didn't. And now it got to this machine and started trying to spread around the environment. So here we can also do things like isolate the host if we think that it has been compromised. So that's part of the EDR dashboard. This is starting to tell the story of early breach detection, right? Why are they trying to touch this server? This server happens to host personal information on it, financial information on it, etc. Now we can start to see, okay, well, this is probably eventually going to be a ransomware attack because they're trying to exfiltrate data. They're looking and mining for that information before they launch their attack because they want to make sure that they can exfiltrate it. So they're hitting all those sensitive servers to try and get that data and then launch their ransomware attack on you. With the streamlined investigations, what we're doing is, you see on the bottom, there's something wrapped in yellow circles. We correlate, aggregate, and present to you exactly what the trigger is. There's no need to go looking for why we said this was a threat. This really separates us from our competitors because you get a lot of noise with our competitors. You have to look through all those things and see what they are. We'll give the entire chain starting point on the threat so that you can start taking action immediately, like quarantining, killing processes, etc. What that does is it takes that card that was a very protective of you, so when something bad was going to happen, and turns it into something that's protecting you instead of reacting to something bad happening, right? So sensors everywhere looking at keeping you equal distance from cars in front and behind you, keeping you in your lane so you're not swerving and hitting anything. When you step on those brakes, you got analog brakes now, so you don't slide off the road. So that is what ATS brings to your core product. Sensors everywhere, things looking to protect you from something bad happening. Next, we're going to talk about layering in the extended detection response. So from here, let's say an email is going around the environment, and that email looks like it is a phishing attempt, and it's going and trying to get people to give them their credentials or fool them into doing something else. With the XDR sensor, we do integrate with Microsoft APIs to reach into Microsoft Office 365, for example, and delete that email. So you don't have to leave Bitdefender when you see these things happening to take action on them, right? If I see that user had the impossible logon, how could it log in two separate places, almost identical timeframes across the globe from each other? Well, that looks suspicious. You'll see I have three options. I can disable the user, I can force the user credential reset, or if I need someone else to look at this, I can mark it as compromised and someone else would be able to come in and say, okay, yeah, that was or was not me. We were running some sort of test, whatever. But we don't have to wait and go into Azure Active Directory to take these actions, right? We could take them right here from inside the XDR sensor. In addition to that, I can isolate, just like with the EDR sensor, I can isolate these hosts. We also give the ability to PowerShell into them, to run command line that is specific to Bitdefender to kill things that shouldn't be running, restore registry keys, etc., to get that machine to being back to ready to go on the internet, back on the network. Right. So when you have that XDR, what you're now doing is you're turning yourself into the pit crew for your customer. Your customer never has to get out of the driver's seat to be able to keep just going. They come in, you take care of what they need, and they're on their way again, right? So that really takes you from reactive to proactive defense, right? Now, again, I mentioned earlier, anything that does not have an M in front of it, you're doing yourself. But you have other things that you need to do for your customers. So why not offload that security practice or security responsibilities to a security operations center, the MDR from Bitdefender, right? So here we start to look at 24/7, 24 by 7 by 365 response, right? So anytime there's an incident, a bunch of things are going on in the background at Bitdefender. there's a lot, you got a lot of data at first, and it gets whittled down to what is a real incident versus what is just noise. Once you get to that real incident, does an investigation need to happen? Okay. All of those things that are going on, we're going to give you an after action report for. Additionally, we're not waiting for bad things to happen. We do proactive hunts, which means if we saw in someone else's organization, or we saw in the news there was an outbreak somewhere on this side of the world, we would look in your environments. Is this a threat that you're currently vulnerable to, and make sure that you're not? And I see Serge is back, so I wonder if he has a question.
It's not the question that I saw in chat. It's a question I got for myself. When you do these kind of action, do you know if there's any reports sent by email or any report that are available in the platform or anything that a customer or a MSP can go and check? Oh, I saw that they were proactive. They did what they were supposed to do, and
I'm glad you asked
improve.
that question. The answer is yes to both. All
Perfect.
right. So inside the MDR portal, because we're here, we're just going to take a look at a couple things. The first thing you do is you define your group of emergency contacts, right? So Bitdefender takes action immediately. We have a 30-minute SLA to contact you after we've taken action. You'll see here, I have 3 people on that list that I'm going to contact. If I am going on site and someone else needs to be the first contact, I can just drag this over here and someone else would be the first contact. Our team, within 30 minutes, is going to go through this list 1, 2, 3 until they contact someone, phone calls, emails, whatever, because there's an active incident going on. We need to talk to someone. Second thing you're going to do is pre-approve what we're allowed to do without contacting you, right? So kill processes, remote shell, delete files, isolate hosts. And by the way, if you did allow us to isolate a host, I do see a question that we'll get to that in a second, or a comment. You can also tell us not to isolate certain hosts. Maybe this is a server and it's in production. You're doing something, but you don't want Bitdefender's team to isolate it no matter what's going on without contacting you first. You can leave those notes here, right? So you're telling our team you can take this action. Now, we reached out to have that phone call, that email. There's something called an after action report. So over here in the reports, you're going to see monthly reports, you're going to see tipper reports, incidents, etc. Depending on what the action was, what type of activity it was, one of these will come to you, or in the dashboard. What you're setting up in notifications is anytime you see an incident, I want that immediately. Anytime there was an investigation, I want that immediately. This is where the email is going to come to you. You set up your recipients right here that says the Bitdefender team did this, X, Y, Z, whatever it was. For the MSP, you'll see here there is a monthly report here. For the MSP, it contains all of the MSP customers, right? And everything that Bitdefender did for them. So we'll take a quick look at this one. For the individual customers, you have a report to send just to them that has only their information in it. So you'll see here, the license usage, the monitoring status. Was there any investigations? Were there any threat hunts? What were the open recommendations? So let me explain the difference between an open recommendation and an action. So back here, remember, you created some pre-approved actions for us. And that pre-approved actions were to isolate a host, right? Great, we're isolating a host. But maybe there was something that we recommended that had nothing to do with isolating a host. For example, we noticed there was a network scan going on. We're going to send you a notification with a recommendation. Verify that this machine, 1, was valid to be able to do that type of network scanning. 2, if it's not, take it off the network and just make sure that it's not doing it, because you didn't tell us to stop this type of activity. We noticed it. It doesn't mean it's a threat. You could be doing something like a network scan to go find new machines on the network. So we're not going to block that activity. We are going to alert you that we saw it, though, so that you can take that secondary action that says, I know what that is. Tell us, don't worry about it. That's normal. Or I don't know what that is, so I need to talk to my other techs or my customer and say, were you doing a network scan? right? So there are some things that are our responsibility. There are some things that are going to be recommended for you to follow up on. Does that answer your question?
Very, very good. More than I asked for, but really good. The question in the chat is, compared to Blackpoint Cyber, how does the Bitdefender MDR resolve issue such as MFA token breach? And the question was by Marcus of Tech Alta.
Okay, Marcus. So that one in particular, I'd need to talk to some people on. But when you look at how Bitdefender, so Bitdefender is built for prevention, for protection, not to say, okay, let's let something happen, and then after it happened, try and figure out what it was and then fix it, right? So when you look at initial access, that's where that stuff starts to come in. Is this user, trying to find a way around normal access, right? Are they looking to do something silly with credentials, dump LSAS, that type of stuff? And once they get the initial access, what are they doing with the users? Are they looking for a super admin? Are they looking to try and grab things that doesn't belong to them? So part of the network protection is that DNS type of protection. Are these things approved to happen? If they are, great. If they're not, we're going to block them and alert you that they are. And part of the part of the advanced threat control, this is part of core product. So when someone is going after those credentials in the registry and they're trying to figure out a way to manipulate, information out of your registry, we see that. We can stop those things from happening. The same thing kind of goes down here in the anti-tampering, right? So anytime that someone's trying to say, and this again, part of core product, trying to disable your security for the purpose of doing something malicious, Bitdefender knows that. We also kind of we look at normal activity for those machines, right? What's normal? Not going after tokens is not, that's not normal. Not playing with system files to try and get credentials access, that's not normal. What's normal for your machine is to be in your email, to be browsing the website, to be chatting through Teams and stuff like that, and on meetings. Those other things, we've already baselined your endpoint to say that's normal. When we see those other things that are not normal happening, that's when we jump in to stop things. In addition to that, when we have our MDR team, and our MDR team starts seeing in the incidents dashboard here. So everything that happens in the incidents dashboard, the MDR team sees as well. So if I come in here and I see that, there are all these PowerShell commands and all this access to whatever, they see that too, right? So they can come in here and they can say, okay, well, let me isolate that host. Let me take an investigation on it, find out if it's real, if it's not real, and alert the MSP what we found. Hope that answered your question.
Well, I think it's something we could go back at the end of your presentation, because I think it's a really nice subject that Marcus bring to us, but I don't want you to delay too much your presentation, and we don't have
we could
enough
follow
time.
up after. Absolutely.
Yeah, at the end, I'm sure it's going to be great to go back to that discussion about
some of those questions I might have to go and ask for some help on, right? So let's write that one down, because I have people much smarter than me that I can get those answers from. Okay. So let's go back to where we were. So yes, there's reports. Yes, there's actions. Yes, there's recommendations, hunts, and all those things. We also provide you with a bunch of documentation for tipper reports and things like that. So if we see there's a Palo Alto vulnerability and we know your customer uses Palo Alto, we're going to have that report, give it to you so you can bring it to your customer and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on in the wild. We made sure that I think there was another question in there just now. We made sure that you weren't vulnerable to it, right? So we talked about those pre-approved actions and those emergency contacts to make sure that those are in this, so our team knows who to reach out to, and then those after action reports, etc. So what that does is it takes that all the way to EDS. That now MDR is basically adding humans to your stack, right? So Mr. Lupo, we saw you were in an accident. Would you like us to call you an ambulance? That's what that brings to the table now. So you can go about doing your normal business for your customers and make sure that they're still protected. Okay, I think that was okay. So now let's get into the other piece of this. So if you're using our cloud security for endpoints, you're back here and you're looking at the add-ons, and that could add multiple SKUs to your licensing, right? So we did simplify that, and forgive me for running real quickly backwards and coming this way down. What that allows you to do is say, instead of me needing 3 licenses, we need core, we need advanced threat security, and we need EDR. To get to EDR, we bundled that into a solution we call secure. So secure gives you that what you have right now, which is the cloud security for endpoints, plus the advanced threat security, plus the EDR. That allows you to use one license, one SKU to get all those pieces. Now, if you want to layer in the MDR, that now takes 4 SKUs and turns it down to what we call Secure Plus. And that gives you the managed detection response on top of the EDR. If you need to add some XDR, and the 2 that we do see, and the 2 that I highlighted in the presentation, were the identity and the productivity centers. Those allow you to integrate with the Office 365 and Azure Active Directory to do those things like delete emails, force user credentials, etc. Now that takes 6 SKUs down to 1. Now on top of that, you can still layer in that middle row there in red any of the other add-ons that we have. So if you need patch management or security for mobile devices, instead of having 8 SKUs for Bitdefender now, you can use 2 or 3 based on which bundle you went with and then which add-ons you went with on top of that. So do we have any other questions in here? Okay. The concern is the user authenticates under a phishing email and then the token is taken by bad. So yes.
Yeah, at that point, I think it's you need a protection to block the email. The phishing attack, it's the problem.
Yes,
it's not
there's 2 pieces.
Exactly.
Yep, there's two pieces there. One, so if you're using Bitdefender email security, then we're going to clean that email before it gets to the destination anyways, right? Let's say you're not, and that email gets to the customer. This fileless attack protection right here that's built into advanced threat security, it's looking for that behavior. Why? Because when you click on an email, it shouldn't be doing silly things in the background. It should be sitting there letting you read it. It shouldn't be trying to call out to something else to pull down whatever. And those phishing attacks, we do have those 2 types of protections. One, try and stop it with the email protection, where you redirect it through our service. 2, if it does get to the endpoint, the fileless attack defense is looking for that type of behavior. That's why it's not detected as irregular activity. But we already baseline the endpoint. It shouldn't be doing those things. When you click on that email and in memory, we see them trying to do those things, that's when we're going to stop it. That makes sense?
We have another question from Bob. He says, will EDR automatically remediate a ransomware attack that is trying to encrypt files and return them to their pre-encrypted state and kill the attack? I think at that point, it's not EDR. It's just the core that has the possibility.
So that's absolutely right. So that's part of what you have already if you're using our core product. And that's here under the on execute, right? So advanced threat control, this is a zero trust process monitor. It can kill ransomware. Ransomware mitigation is where the rollback comes from, right? So by default, it's not actually turned on. So you're probably saying, okay, well, I got ransomware, whatever. Ransomware mitigation, we built our own way to back those files up. We're not relying on shadow copies or VSS Admin because those are targets by people who write ransomware. We tamper-proofed ours and said, okay, the minute a file is being encrypted, we're going to take a backup of it. We how do I say this? We only go up to 10 meg, right? So you're thinking, oh, it's going to just take all these big files. Nobody starts a ransomware attack with your largest files. Nobody. They go for a lot of files real quick, and that's where you see the smaller files getting grabbed to do the scaring, right? So it's not about encryption. There's ransomware out there that doesn't encrypt anymore. They just send you a note that says, we stole your data, pay us to get it back, right? We didn't bother with encrypting. So what the encryption does is to scare you into thinking, oh my goodness, I got to buy a key to get those files back. No, it's so you don't see them extracting the data that they're going to try and sell back to you when you decide not to pay the ransomware for their encryption. So we take all the small ones that are being backed up. At the moment they're being backed up. We don't do periodic backups or whole system snapshots. That would make no sense. The second that we realize it's ransomware, the advanced threat security kills the process, right? So we also have something called a ransomware vaccine. So a ransomware vaccine is for legacy systems, but it's built into the on-execute ransomware mitigation for Windows 10 and beyond. This is us pretending to have ransomware, because ransomware writers, they're not going to try and uninstall someone else's ransomware, right? So once we see that it is ransomware, we actually install that ransomware vaccine, which stops it from spreading. The advanced threat control kills the process, and the ransomware mitigation puts all those things over here in ransomware activity, so you can click on it and say restore, right? If it's on automatic, then what it's going to do is automatically roll those back for you. And if you have compliance, you might not be able to do that. So there's an on-demand feature where if you do have compliance that says an investigation needs to happen before we do anything, you leave that on demand so that investigators come in, they see the incident, they do the investigation, they put a checkbox in there, they roll it back. When you have Bitdefender on the servers, you need to make sure this remote option is on. Again, all of this is part of core product. If you're using Bitdefender right now, you already have this. What this does, if that attack is coming from another machine and it's trying to encrypt the files on the server, we can protect and roll back the files on the server as long as Bitdefender is on the server, so that we can protect it from a remote attack.
Sure, if you have Bitdefender, you need to. The best practice is to deploy to all your machines, not to have like
all your machines. 90% of these found their way into the network on a machine that did not have Bitdefender on it. That's what our own investigations into any types of incidents in a Bitdefender protected network, that's what we found was.
Yeah, we saw the same thing, that the reason why the server was encrypted, it's because it didn't have the security suites installed. And just going back, you said that new ransomware do not even bother to encrypt file. They just send you a request to send money. It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remind that, but before the first ransomware, one of the virus I saw a lot of time during my MSP days was just hidden files. So the people were logging into their system and they were like, my files are not there, but they were just moved or hidden, and they were easy recover. But when someone was another thing.
Yeah, they've gotten to the point. I know I saw your other question there, Bob. I'll get there in a second. What we've just released a publication on a couple of weeks ago. One of our analysts did a story on meow leaks or something like that. I can't remember what the actual ransomware family was, but it just sends you a note that says, we have your data, we didn't bother encrypting. If you want your data, if you want to stop us from publishing this into the wild, pay us. They just went right for the money. They didn't even care. Okay, so I see your question, Bob. Does the remote option under ransomware cover OneDrive, SharePoint, and Google Drive, or just on-prem NAS? So it's where Bitdefender is installed on the server. So it's if your SharePoint had Bitdefender installed on it, possibly, but your Google Drive and OneDrive probably not going to have Bitdefender installed on them. Make sense?
Makes sense for me.
Okay, perfect. What haven't I talked about? You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. What haven't I talked about? What am I missing? How is it licensed? We could do that. CPU load. I can't tell you what the CPU load is. It's going to be different in every environment.
I'm curious if you. I see that you are logged into your. I imagine your lab or your demo account. Is that a demo in your demo account? Do you have like the XDR network appliance deployed, and we could maybe see some kind of traffic? And because that's something.
I wish I did. I don't have a network traffic sensor deployed in my environment, but we do have this incident that we have a lot of XDR capabilities into, right? So you'll see here, we want you to contain, right? So because this is a demo incident, the actions aren't actually there, but we want when we want you to isolate something or delete an email or any network activity that required an action would be listed here in the response actions. And then when this is live in your environment, you'll see this execute would be populated and you'd be able to isolate that machine, that user right from there, or delete that email right from here. Unfortunately, I don't have live XDR in my environment because it does require some additional licensing that I'm not authorized to expense.
We have
What
another
are the
question.
hold on?
What
What are the
are the
oldest
oldest
Windows?
Windows and macOS supported?
Wow. Great question. I put this in the chat. You can click on it. Here, that's for you to go through and see what the system requirement. That might be the wrong
Perfect.
one. That might be the wrong one. That's the wrong one.
And I just imagine that it's something that's changed quite often.
Yes, I mean, as newer operating systems come out, as things go into the cloud versus on premise and stuff like that, you have to be able to adjust with those things, right? So we do have our installation packages set up in a way that if there was the need to change the way that the scans were done, a hybrid scan allows you to use some cloud resources. A local scan is going to stay on that machine completely. So if you're worried about the load, thank you, Sam, for putting in that requirements. So this is why I have a support team with me here, and I can do a lot of things, but sometimes I just miss something. And thank you, Sam. With the local resources here, we're going to use only the local machine for scanning, right? With a hybrid scan, which is our default mode, we're going to use some scanning from the cloud and some scanning on the endpoint to make sure that that machine is not being consumed by Bitdefender to do that scan, if that makes sense. So while I can't tell you what the CPU load is itself, I can tell you that on my laptop with 64 gigs of RAM, I run a rather large lab where I can run many instances of Bitdefender at the same time and not kill my laptop. Yes, I said laptop.
Yeah, laptop with 64 gig of RAM. I'm jealous. I don't I have a good machine, but it's not with the 64 gig of RAM in my laptop.
And this is my lab. It's on an SSD drive.
Oh, sure. No, that I have. So, question though, with your Mac support, is the ransomware protection also include for Macs?
I was reading. I'll get to your question. So Bob. No, we don't. Let me rephrase that. So if you're looking for legacy operating system installations, you would need to go through our support team. There's no support for things we don't support, right? It doesn't mean that it won't install, but because it's a deprecated operating system, we don't have our support for it anymore. It's not in the installation packages here. Our support team might be able to get them for you, but we're going to wipe our hands if something doesn't work. Hope that makes sense. All right, sir, ask your question again. Thanks again,
Is
Sam.
is the ransomware protection also available on the Mac OS?
Yes.
Perfect.
Because it's part of the on execute, and where's that here? advanced threat control. It's part of this module right here, so it's available on all operating systems.
Perfect.
Now,
I do have
a list of FAQs if anybody is interested in going through things that I've seen in the past. If not, then we can just continue to just chat about nothing. All right, we do have one. With the email security component, is it able to recall emails already delivered to an Outlook service? So I don't think there's a recall option. We will stop anything from being delivered that you don't want delivered. But if it's already delivered, then through Outlook, through Office 365, you would probably have to pull that recall back. With the XDR sensor, we can delete an email that you don't want continuing to go through. So not so much recall, but get rid of that email altogether when you think it's suspicious. We can do that. But I think that's more a function of Microsoft talking to Microsoft, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So, there's.
I think we're good.
All right, perfect. So one of the things that I want to talk about, just because we get this question a lot when we're talking to, Bitdefender versus its competitors. When we talk about MDR, right, there are some competitors out there that say all or nothing. Right? So what they're saying is, if you want our service, you have to install it on every single one of your customers and every single one of their endpoints. In the Bitdefender world, we're saying, we understand that right now, either you haven't convinced your customer for the need, or there is no need, right, at this time. So we allow you to customize any of the installations the way that you want. If you need core product for one customer, advanced threat security and EDR for another customer, and MDR for another customer, we'll let you split it out that way. It's not all or nothing, and there's no minimums, right? So that's one of the other things that we've been seeing is there are minimums for, if you don't have X amount of endpoints, then you can't use it. We don't do that. The other thing we're seeing is when we talk about standing up Bitdefender versus other solutions in the market, because Bitdefender is Bitdefender, and the technology from the core product onto MDR is Bitdefender, we don't have to interpret someone else's technology thinking something's a threat. We've already made that decision way back here because it landed in the incidents dashboard, right? So when we go into the incidents dashboard, if Bitdefender said this was bad, it's bad. And now when you get over to the MDR, they're seeing the same activity and they're going, okay, yeah, that's bad. They don't have to try and figure out what that it was because it's our technology talking to our technology. On top of that, there's a lot of noise that comes with some of the other solutions, mostly for that same reason. There's a lot of false positives. So what do you have to sift through to get to what's real and what's not real? That's time. That's money, right? Yeah. Any amount of time you spend not being proactive, you're losing money and your customer's losing money. And something that keeps your false positives and chatter down, that's something you want to invest your money in because it's going to help you stay productive.
For sure.
All right, we got about 14 minutes left. What do you want to do at that time? Or do we have another question over there? Nope, that's just Sam putting more thoughts into the chat for me. All right. Let's see. So let's talk about enabling it. Let me just get through that, and then I'll get right back to you. So here's the thing with Bitdefender, and when you have ATS and EDR already deployed, down here on the bottom, all you need to do is flick this switch. There's nothing left for you to deploy. So I don't have to put another agent down there. And we're saying, what do we want to do now that you have your advanced threat security and your EDR and or XDR deployed? Well, I want to send that to the SOC now. So as long as you have all those things deployed, you click Manage Detection Response and click Save. That is now connected to the SOC, and you're off to the races. Your question, Serge?
No, it's a question in the chat. Bob saying, Does email security include the ability to hold and receive mail for 30 days, and if needed, resend an email into a mailbox?
So let's go with your second question. It does support Google Workspace. Uh, we do have the ability to quarantine, digest, etc., as well as if there is downtime. Obviously, we're going to hold that in a spool for X amount of days. I don't know if it's 30 days, but I do know there is a spool for a while to make sure that comes back online to finish the delivery. Are there any cloud backup options? Service for Microsoft is do we have? I don't remember. I'm going to have to follow up with that one. So Sarah, you have Bob's contact information, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Bob, Siri thinks I'm asking her. So Bob, Serg and I will get that question answered for you, and we will follow up after the session because I'm pretty sure we do have some stuff. I don't want to give you the wrong information and put it out there that Paul doesn't know what he's talking about.
Because I just said at the beginning of the
And
meeting
Sam's
that
typing again. Yeah, but as she said, we will get you more specific information about it. Thank you again. All right. One other thing that I want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet, the in-product trials. Let me go over to a different console over here. Oops, that's not the one. All right. So if you weren't sure if you were ready to try the MDR yet, there's MSP trial status available for trial. If you had licensing up to EDR, you would then have this availability to try the managed detection response for a certain amount of time on a certain amount of endpoints on your customer, not on your own partner company. If you didn't have MDR yet, and you're still on core like a lot of you are, you can actually start a free trial of our EDR platform too, right? So if you want to get a feel for it, is this really something I want to offer to my customers, et cetera? When you log into GravityZone and you look at your customers, add this column here that says MSP trial status, and then you'll see trial status, eligible, not eligible, etc. And then you'll know whether or not you can put one of these trials on your customers. Now, not eligible might mean you don't have ATS and EDR deployed, right? So you wouldn't be able to try the MDR piece, or maybe they didn't license it for the company. Then all you do is turn it on and deploy it. But you have the ability to try these things at your will to make sure it's something that's going to be a fit for you and your customer. What is Bitdefender's policy on NFR licenses? Can we buy NFR licenses for our own devices at a discount price, or better yet, get free NFR licenses? So I am not in sales. Is
If
there
you,
ways? Go ahead, Sarah.
yeah, if you want information about Bitdefender and NFR, I recommend you send an email to your account manager at IT Cloud. It's a possibility, but it's depending what you have already with the Bitdefender.
Thank you. All right. Is an Azure Virtual Desktop or VM applicable to having? Yes. So we look at the endpoint itself. We don't care if it's physical or virtual. So if you have those machines running Bitdefender on them, you can also put the Bitdefender additional technologies on them as well.
And I imagine it's a great idea if you have a server in Azure. Azure will run the server, but it's not their job to protect it.
That's a common misconception about the cloud, right? I put it in the cloud and the cloud's going to protect it. No, they're just giving you the resources. You need to protect them yourself. Exactly. All right. What else can I say today? I think we have a couple of follow-up questions that we need to get answered after.
Yeah.
We walked through the presentation. We answered the questions. I showed you how to use the in-product trials. We talked about setting up your pre-approved actions, your emergency contacts and stuff like that, and how to enable the MDR service and how to try it. We got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah,
Anything
but
else?
just Marcus add something that it's interesting. He was curious about, let's say you have a VM in the cloud of Azure or anything, but it's serving as a TS server and 50 user. Do you
Oh, I
have
see
to
that.
pay? Is it the licensing issue at that point, or and you're not in sales? I'm sorry, I put you on
No,
the spot.
it's we don't have a user-based license. We will protect the server itself. So when the user connects to the server, they don't need a license to be protected because the server is protected. The endpoint that they're connecting from, I get that it's going to be a terminal, but they still have to connect from
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly.
That can have Bitdefender on it.
So it's per device and not per
Per device, not per user.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
I think that does it.
All right. I've enjoyed this. I hope you guys have. Now, we are still available for questions after this. You guys get in touch with Serg and his team, and you're very welcome. And any questions we did not answer today, anything we did not show you today, we're happy to talk to you about in the future as well.
Yes. So we have a few minutes to have a break, and it's not Friday yet, so it's not beer time. But we wish everybody a great afternoon, and you, Paul. Nice to see you again, and hope to see you soon.
Merci. It was. I got that one, didn't I? All right, everybody. With that, if there are no more questions, we will shut this down now, and we will see you again in the future. Have a great day, everybody.